जय हिंद दोस्तों. In this video I will talk about difference between epic and tragedy. I have already talked about tragedy in particular and explained all the elements involved in tragedy. But here in particular I'll focus on key elements of epic and key elements of tragedy, and then I'll explain similarities and difference between tragedy and epic. Here is comparison between epic and tragedy. So let us see how Aristotle in Poetics defined tragedy. Aristotle in Poetics defined tragedy as an imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude. In a language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament, the several kinds being found in separate parts of the play in the form of action, not of narrative, through pity and fear, effecting the proper purgation of these emotions. These emotions means emotions of pity and fear. Aristotle in Poetics defines epic as an imitation of serious subjects in a grandiose manner, in a grandiose style, and narrating a story of heroic deeds. It shares many of the qualities of tragedy but differs in form and length. So, like tragedy, epic poetry is an imitation of actions. It represents significant and serious actions through storytelling. It is not dramatized, but it is narrated. While dealing with tragedies, Aristotle's concept of tragedy, I talked about the Theban plays. That is the plays by Sophocles, because this is the starting point. Aristotle based his theory of tragedy on Sophocles' play Oedipus Rex, Oedipus at Colonus, and Antigone. So these three plays together are called the Theban plays. When we talk about epic, particularly the epics, classical epics we are talking about are based upon the Trojan War, the war that took place between Greeks and Troy, the independent city-state, the war between Greeks and Troy independent state. And in Greece also, then there were many or several independent city states. So the Greek people made alliance, they came together and they fought against Troy, that is independent city state. So why this particular war happened? Because this war, Trojan War, as we say, is very significant, very important in terms of the subject matter of epic poetry. So we need to understand for that matter the story of Helen and Menelaus. So who was Helen? Helen of Sparta. She was renowned. Helen was renowned. She was very well known for her beauty. And she was the daughter of Zeus and Leda, Zeus and Leda, Zeus and Leda. So we have to focus on the character of Helen. Helen is very, very important because she is, you can say, the cause of Trojan War which lasted for. She was the cause of Trojan War which lasted for around 10 years. The most beautiful woman got married to the king Menelaus and they led very happy life. But then something happens that triggers the war of Troy. And what is that incident? Try to understand. Paris. Now, Paris, a prince of Troy. Prince of Troy. Troy, as I said, independent city state. Troy was not part of Greece. It is across the Aegean Sea. Aegean Sea separate Greece and Troy. So Paris, a prince of Troy, visited Sparta. Menelaus was the king of Sparta and Helen got married to the king of Sparta, Menelaus. So Paris, the prince of Troy, visited Sparta as part of his divine mission. Helen, who had been promised to him by Aphrodite. So he goes to Sparta and then he abducts Helen. This is very interesting story because, as I said, Paris, a prince of Troy, he goes to Sparta and he abducts the most beautiful woman, a married woman, that is the queen of Menelaus. He abducts her and brings her to Troy. So this is the main reason for the war of Troy. So naturally Menelaus becomes very furious. He vows to take revenge and bring his wife back. He holds a meeting. He brings all the kings of independent city states in Greece together. And all these people who were independently ruling their city states, they promised Menelaus to support and fight against Troy. This moment, this initiative led to the formation of coalition of Greek forces and get back Helen. It's just a similar story that we have in Ramayana. The people are the warriors who were involved in Trojan War. We need to know. On the one side, we have Greek warriors. On the other side, we have Trojan warriors who played very significant part in Trojan War. So number one, on Greek side is Achilles. Achilles, the greatest warrior. The second is Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae and leader of the Greek forces. He played very, very important part. And then Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, known for his cleverness. Ajax the Great, known for his size and strength. And there are many more, but we need to remember because when you come across anything about Trojan War, you will find these characters very central to the war. Achilles, Agamemnon, Odysseus, then Menelaus, of course, because the war happened because of his wife's abduction by Paris, the prince of Troy. From Trojan side, we find couple of warriors and they also played very important part in Trojan War. Hector, one of the most important character is Hector. One of the most important warriors is Hector, the noble prince and greatest Trojan warrior. Yeah? Aeneas, a Trojan who survived the war, who outlived the war. He did not get killed. He didn't get killed in war. Then Paris, this is the person who abducted Helen, Prince of Troy. His actions led to the war, as we all know. Then Priam, king of Troy, father of Hector and Paris. And then there are couple of warriors. Then there are a couple of warriors who also took part and played major roles. But what we have to remember? We have to remember Hector, Aeneas, Paris, Priam. So try to understand the location of this war. You see, you find Troy here. This is, Troy in yellow. Here the Troy city state, yellow. And then on the left side you find Greece. And then below in somewhat brown color is Sparta. If you look at on this map, you will find Troy in big letter here, Troy, and then you see Greece here left hand side, and below that you will find Sparta. So the war took place between Greek forces and Troy. So in Greek city states we find Sparta, Mycenae, because Agamemnon, I mentioned Agamemnon, who was the king of Mycenae and who was the brother of Menelaus. Mycenae and who was the brother of Menelaus. So in Greek city states we will find Sparta, Mycenae, Ithaca, who made alliances and who had promised Menelaus to fight against Paris, the Prince Paris, who was from Troy, and his father, Prince Paris's father, is Priam. So the Greek city states, including Sparta, Mycenae, Ithaca, they came together and they fought against Troy. Often operated, they, as I said, these city states in Greece, not like nation, but independent, and they were operating independently. The Trojan War represents one of the instances where multiple Greek city states form a coalition, just as in 20th century, in 21st century, when something happens, some nations come together, they form the alliance and they fight against other nation. In similar fashion, then in that period also people made alliances, the ruling class made alliances, the ruler made alliances to fight against another city state. So same thing happened here. So now let us focus on the similarities and dissimilarities between epic and tragedy. So according to Aristotle, as we know, tragedy and epic poetry share several similarities despite their differences. And what are the similarities? As I said, imitation. Both tragedy and epic poetry are forms of imitation, or what I said, mimesis. You have a look at definitions. They represent and dramatize human actions. In epic, the actions are narrated. In tragedy, the actions are dramatized. Though they do so through different mediums and structure. One is dramatized and another is narrated. In tragedy, the things are dramatized. In epic, things are narrated. Then, second difference. Then, another similarity. Both genre. Another similarity between epic and tragedy is in terms of subject matter. Both epic and tragedy deal with serious subjects and depict noble characters. They focus on significant, weighty themes such as heroism, morality, fate, and the human conditions. Then, structure. Third is structure. Both tragedy and epic have a beginning, middle, and end. They adhere to a structured plot. They both follow the principle of unity and coherence, ensuring that each part contributes to the overall story. Then, in both tragedy and epic, elevated language is used. Both tragedy and epic employ elevated formal language. This use of heightened diction, that is, the beautified language, enhances the dignity and gravity of the subject matter. It is suitable to the subject matter. So, language is best suited to the character, the language is best suited to the situation, the language is best suited to the position of the characters in tragedy and epics. So, there is a kind of coherence not only in terms of structure or action, but then in terms of use of language which is appropriate to the characters who play major parts. Then, ethical purpose. The next similarity is ethical purpose. Both genres, that is epic and tragedy, aim to impart moral lessons and create thoughtful reflection in their audiences. So, this is very important. The aim of both tragedy and epic is to give moral lessons. So, both tragedy and epic explore ethical dilemmas and the consequences of human actions. They offer insight into human nature and society. Both forms often feature heroic characters who are larger than life. The characters who are larger than life. And these characters, whether they are tragic heroes or epic warriors, exemplify qualities such as bravery, honor, and determination. Bravery, honor, and determination. Emotional impact. Both tragedy and epic aim to create strong emotional responses from their audiences. They can inspire admiration, evoke pity and fear, or create a sense of awe through their depiction of human struggles and triumphs. Universal themes. Both genres, both tragedy and epic, address universal themes that resonates across different cultures and eras, just as love, conflict, fate, and the quest for glory, making the stories timeless and relatable. So, in this way, we found that there are similarities between tragedy and epic. Now let us see the difference between tragedy and epic. Those were similarities, and these are differences between tragedy and epic. How epic is different from tragedy. So Aristotle outlines key differences between tragedy and epic, and here are some of those differences. Number one, length and scope. Epic poetry is generally, of course, generally longer and more expansive, and therefore I said that it may have subplots, it may have digression, which are not there in tragedy. So epic poetry is longer and more expansive. It can cover extensive periods and numerous events, often spanning generations and vast geographical areas. Epics are typically written in hexameter. Tragedy is more condensed. It focuses on a single unified action or a small or closely related incidents. There can be subplot, but those subplots must be inextricably connected to the main plot. So there is limitation as far as tragedy is concerned. It usually unfolds within a single day or a short time frame, and it is performed in a theatrical setting. So this is tragedy, and this is the difference between tragedy and epic as far as length is concerned. Epics are narrative poems. Another difference, how epic is different from tragedy. Epics are narrative poems in terms of mode of presentation. If you think of mode of presentations, epic is narrative. It is narrative. Epic is narrative. It is narrated. It means that they are recited or read. Epics rely on narrator's voice to tell the story and can include various episodes and digressions. As far as tragedy is concerned, tragedy is a dramatic form meant for performance on stage. It is dramatic. The actions are presented on stage. By characters. Tragedy involves direct action, dialogue, interaction between characters, with the plot developing through their speeches and actions. It is in narrative form and tragedy is in dramatic form. This is key and fundamental difference between tragedy and epic. The third difference between tragedy and epic is epic poetry does not rely on visual spectacle. Epic poetry does not rely on visual spectacle or music, as it is purely literary form, meant to be read or recited. Tragedy incorporates spectacle and music, essential elements in Greek theatrical performances. Music and spectacle enhance the emotional and aesthetic experience for the audience. So it plays very important role in tragedy. What plays very important role in tragedy? Spectacle and music. Whereas epic does not rely on spectacle and music. The fourth difference between tragedy and epic is focus and unity. Epics often include multiple plots and subplots with a more diffuse narrative structure. They can shift focus among various characters and events. Tragedy, on the other hand, typically centers around a single unified plot with a clear beginning, clear middle, and clear end. It focuses intensely on the protagonist's journey, conflicts, and ultimate downfall. Fifth difference is emotional impact. So, difference between tragedy and epic. Emotional impact. Epic, while epic can evoke a range of emotions, their primary aim is to entertain and to recount heroic deeds. To recount heroic deeds and adventures. As far as epic is concerned, the primary aim of epic is to entertain and to recount heroic deeds and adventures. Tragedy aims to evoke pity and fear. So, the primary function of tragedy is to evoke pity and fear and bring about catharsis of these emotions. So, it delves deep into human suffering, moral dilemmas, and consequences of human actions. In epic, heroes often possess superhuman qualities and face grand, often supernatural challenges. They are usually depicted as paragons of virtue and strength. Try to understand. This is very important point. As far as characterization is concerned, in epic, heroes often possess superhuman qualities and face grand, often supernatural challenges. So we find a kind of divine intervention in epic. They are usually depicted as paragons of virtue and strength. In tragedy, heroes are typically more relatable, and in them we find a tragic flaw. Their downfall is often due to tragic flaw, what we call hamartia, or a mistake, what we say error of judgment, making their stories more personal and emotionally resonant. This distinction highlights These distinctions highlight how tragedy and epic poetry serve different purposes and cater to different aspects of human experience. This is how we find similarities and differences between epic and tragedy. Thank you. Jai Hind.